And there are a lot of folks in Congress who are bound and determined to shove this down our throats. And they're working very hard to create this image of panic, which is if we don't have this, people will be dying. At a recent congressional hearing, one of the chairmen of the subcommittees was literally saying that, if we can't track this better, people will be dying when this food hits
But then the
plate.
foreign food is exempt. The foreign food is exempt. So if people think we've already seen an exodus of U.S.-produced food, we've gone from producing 98% of our food to, half of it now, and it's going down. And in fact, I should add, and I'm rude, Judith McGeary is executive director of the Farm and Ranch Freedom Alliance, is an attorney and small farmer, a BS in biology from Stanford University, and a JD from University of Texas at Austin. And after a clerkship with the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, she practices as an attorney doing a combination of administrative law, litigation, and appeals. So I should add, you're an expert on all this as well.
Well, the thing is, the real expertise comes from handling animals. The real expertise it comes from the day-to-day, knowing what it takes to raise food, knowing what it takes to keep animals healthy. And what's amazing to me about this program and about the mentality and the mindset of the people pushing it is this attitude that somehow folks who are locked in an office who wouldn't know one end of the cow from the other somehow can come up with a technological answer that solves everything and takes care of animal health, while the farmers and ranchers obviously don't know anything, according to these guys.
Well, let me just throw a point out here, and then I want to give you the floor and have you break down how far along this is, how we fight it, how we, go up against it. We have a large piece of property we got in 1829 as a Mexican land grant in East Texas, and I don't even really deer hunt anymore because I don't have the time, don't want to have to dress it, deal with it. But every time I'm out with a telescope at night in the front yard of Grandma's old house once a year, trying to look at Saturn, rolling up without lights as a game warden. They jump out. They're rude to you. They boss you around. When I was a little kid out there, you'd see them every once in a while, and they were polite. Now they treat you like you're a piece of filth as a landowner. Now they're popping up everywhere harassing people, and they're getting federal training. Now to get a hunting or fishing license, they run your background. They run your driver's license. Everything's a tracking control grid. This is going to put federally controlled local bureaucrats into your farm, checking things without a warrant, with game warden type powers, no more Fourth Amendment, walking on saying, I want to see all your cows counted right now, $2,000 fines, and correct me if I'm going from memory, I know you're a lawyer and expert on this, if a cow got struck by lightning and you didn't report it to him, or you sold a cow to a neighbor, or a cow got out and got hit by a car. I mean, this is guilty until proven innocent tyranny over all rural communities.
Absolutely. The specific fines vary from state to state because they're talking about implementing it by state statute. Here in Texas, it's $1,000 per day would be the maximum fine. In Wisconsin, they're currently prosecuting Amish farmers, charging them $5,000 for not registering their property. So it varies from state to state, but either way, it's bad news. I mean,
they're even forcing the Amish.
20,000.
They're even 20,000. They're even forcing the Amish in. Okay, break down this horror, how bad it is. This affects everybody who's rural and then everybody who lives in the cities. This is literal. Stalin did this in Ukraine, kicking people off the land and controlling it. I mean, China does this. This is hardcore. Pol Pot did this. I mean, this is hardcore. Go ahead.
Well, the thing is, in practical terms, it means that almost no one will be able to raise food animals. The big corporations will be able to. They get group identification, actually for thousands of animals. They can take one of those huge, horrific chicken farms that has, 10,000 or 20,000 birds crammed into a building and give it one ID number. And yet, small farmers or anyone trying to raise any kind of food animal, or pets even, have to individually tag each animal.
That's why we see cities passing laws making you tag your animals like San Marcos. I mean, this is so diabolical, and openly big companies like Archer Daniels, Midland, and Tyson lobbied, knowing this is going to shut down the family farm. It's over.
Absolutely. I mean, Tyson's been hip deep in this. All of the big corporations have. And, of course, they claim it's food safety, and they pretend that they're providing safe food, when the reality is it's the small farmers who you want for your safe food supply. And
unbelievable.
What you get is it's so expensive because you're talking electronic tags, and then you're talking about all the infrastructure that comes with it. So scanners and computers and internets and readers and everything else that comes with it. And keep in mind, the last census showed that 48% of farmers don't even have any internet. So,
can you imagine having chickens and a game warden type punk in a uniform, but they're hiring nothing but the socialist and phony environmentalist, carbon showing up and literally cornering you? You got 5 chickens right here. You're going to jail, or here's a $20,000 fine. This is already happening. Man, I'm sorry. Go ahead. It just makes me so angry.
It should make you. It should make all of us angry. I have to sort of learn not to go crazy over it, because otherwise I'd have been locked up about 3 years ago.
We're going to beat them. Keep going.
We have to beat them, because the reality is, if you can't afford to raise food animals, then you stop raising them. And the reality for a lot of people then is they lose their land, because if you aren't an ag business, you lose your ag valuation on the land, and you can't afford property taxes.
Which if you don't know, I was looking at a piece of property, and if it already has an ag exemption, you can go to environmental, preserve. But once you get land and go to environmental, you can't ever go back. And they admit they don't want people farming. They're paying people to not farm. Go ahead.
And so what we'll end up with is a lot of people losing their land, even if they find another option like the environmental exemptions or environmental valuations, many people stopping raising animals for food. And so your only options start becoming the Tysons and the Cargills. We'll have a food supply that is already far too controlled by these companies that will be entirely controlled by these companies.
Unbelievable.
And, at a minimum, what we're talking about is increased cost, lower quality, the sort of things you find in any monopoly. That's the best case scenario.
Unbelievable.
Worst case scenario, it goes downhill from there, because food is what you need to survive. And we don't want to have to be dependent on multinational corporations for basic necessity of life.
And then they can force you to buy their GMO products. And I'm sure you've seen accompanying this, you're a lawyer, the bill they got introduced to basically crack down and restrict organic farming. I mean, this is getting wild.
The scary thing is there are about 6 bills in Congress right now, all under the heading of food safety. And all of them contain provisions for what's called best management practices or best scientific risk analysis, different terms, but they basically boil down to the agencies telling people how to farm.
Yeah, turning hordes of control freak, carbon footprint eugenicists loose on the people. What does the war map look like right now? How bad is it? I know we're having victories and defeats. How do we defeat them?
Well, right now there's a big opening because the USDA is holding listening sessions all around the country. And I'm not holding my breath that USDA is actually listening. In fact, I bet they aren't. But the point is, if we get huge crowds there and overwhelmingly at meeting after meeting after meeting, people there say, we don't want this, stop it. That's how we hopefully get mainstream press attention. We start reaching out to the Congress, putting pressure on them. So even, whether USDA is listening or not is almost irrelevant. What we need is crowds at these meetings. And
I was listening to Derry Brownfield this morning, and he said he's gone to meetings and talked to people that are at them. He said you'll have 500 people against this, but 5 or 6 people for it, and they're all the local farm bureau heads who openly have gotten money from the feds and others, literally like 20 pieces of silver.
Oh, absolutely. Last week we had the listening session here in Texas. Huge crowd, person after person after person from every walk of life, including people who have technological backgrounds and understand the technology, standing up and saying, don't do this. It's a bad program. We don't want it. And then the handful of people who spoke for it were the Texas Dairymen Association, whose parent organization has gotten money, the pork producers, whose parent organization has gotten money, and that was about it,
Yeah, well, these are big monopoly men. The dairy folks want a monopoly, so they want to shut down small dairies. The pork people want to shut down the small operators. Folks, this is do or die. These are offshore corporations coming in and turning hardcore control freaks loose on you. And I've met these DNR people and others. Almost every one of them are right out of 1940 Russia. I mean, these are like Stalinists. Stay with us.
Less than a century ago, half of the American public grew much of their own food. Today, it's been estimated that only 1% of Americans still grow their own food. During the Great Depression, over 18 million people suffered from starvation. And as America continues down its current path, for many, the reality of another depression is a very serious concern. With massive layoffs and unemployment at record levels, growing your own food will help you save money that you'd normally spend at the grocery store. Invest in your family's future by stocking up with your very own supply of seeds available from getseeds.net. Each order includes over 14,000 non-GMO, chemical-free seeds that will provide you with food for years. Call 877